Welcome to the world's most fabulous people series. I'm your host today, Tonya Hofmann, and I am so excited to introduce to you, oh my goodness, the most fabulous man you've ever met, Mr. Pressley Giles. Hey, Pressley, how are you?
Hi, how are you? Good to
Good.
be here.
So tell us, Pressley, how fabulous are you?
Well, I gotta tell you, I haven't always been fabulous. It kind of comes and goes every now and then. I have my moments, but this morning I'm feeling pretty darn fabulous. I am so excited to be with you. I have looked forward to this a long time, and I just want to say
Nice.
thank you right off the bat.
So what are you up to nowadays?
Well, I wrote a book, and I started a change of career in speaking, in public speaking, and it's life changing. I'm 58, so to change everything around and everything it keeps me busy.
Right.
It definitely keeps me busy. There's no other way to say it.
I know a lot of it is like personal development. You're like, what do I have to learn now? So it's kind
Yeah,
of
I
exciting.
know.
So tell us about, have you always been this fabulous? You kind of hinted that you haven't.
Well, no, I haven't always. There was a time. I remember. I'm going to take you back just a little bit, about 20 years ago. Actually, I can give you the actual date. It was January 10th, which was a Friday, 1997, and I was rushing around my apartment in Staten Island, getting ready for work, and the phone rang. And it rang, a few times, and I'm like, I don't really have time for this. Just kind of like, you know, brushed it off a little bit. But then it kept ringing, and I thought, okay, all right, well, let me answer this real quick. So I picked up the phone, and it was my doctor. And uh, he says, well, I need you to come into the office as soon as possible. He says, if you could come in today, that would be just fine. And I said, well, I'm on my way to work right now. I don't really have time. And he says, I really need you to come in. It's very important. And I kept brushing him off and saying, well, I don't really, what is going on? Well, I don't understand why you need me to come into your office. Why can't you just tell me, right here over the phone? He says, it's better to do this in person. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? you know?
Right.
And so we kept going back and forth, and finally he mumbled something, and I almost lost it because I didn't understand what he was saying, and I got frustrated. And finally he repeated himself, and he says, the test was negative, but now it's positive. And I said, what are you talking about? What test? Every few months back then, I took an HIV test. And every few months I took one, just routine. And this particular day, I took that particular time in the doctor's office, I took the HIV test and basically just forgotten about it. And so now he's calling me on the phone and he's telling me, well, your test was negative before, but now it's positive. You've tested
Wow.
positive for HIV. And so I was stunned. Needless to say, at this time, a lot of that was going on, and I don't know why I was quite as stunned as I was, but I always felt that I was careful, but still yet, I was kind of stunned. And so I said, well, what do I need to do? He says, come into the office, and then we can sit down and we can talk about how we're going to handle this, going to retest me and do all that kind of good stuff, make sure that it's really a positive, And so the first thing I did after I hung up the phone with the doctor is I called my mother. Not to tell her what was going on. I just needed to hear her voice. If I heard her voice, that's all I needed. I could go on. I could handle the rest. So I called her, talked with a little light banter, maybe about 1 or 2 minutes. I just wanted to see how you were doing, that type of thing. And I headed out to work. When I walked outside, Tonya, it was the most brilliant, beautiful sunlight I had ever seen. The sky was bluer than blue. The clouds, they seemed to be smiling at me. the grass reminded me of why green was my favorite color, you know, and every tree seemed to have its own personality. And I'm not sure what was going on in my head. I wasn't sure what was happening, but I was so glad to be alive, just to be alive. And it was like it was the first time I had seen some of these things, you know?
Yeah.
And so I had to take the Staten Island ferry into Manhattan. And so I got on the ferry and I gently smiled at people and I made eye contact with people as much as possible. In New York, you have to be careful with that. So, and I made eye contact with people. I just wanted to, for some reason, connect.
Yeah.
I just wanted to connect. And so that day, the Hudson River kind of glimmered in the sunlight. The Statue of Liberty seemed more proud than ever. When I got to work, I was a bellman for a very upscale hotel, 5-diamond hotel. When I got to work that day, I went above and beyond for every guest. Every guest. I made great tips that day. It was great. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't let anybody know what was going on, you know. And then that night after my shift was over, and I got off, I walked outside, I took a deep breath. I just inhaled the air. And it was like, it just like all of that positive, successful, I know I can type attitude that's in the air of New York City. You know, and the lights in town, you know, the lights, and as they glimmered, you know, and everything, it just seemed to be like they were winking at me, like, you can do this.
Yeah.
You can handle this. And I knew I was ready for that fight. I knew it was going to be a fight, and I was ready for it. And so the next day I went into the doctor's office. He sent me to a whole lot of specialists and everything like that. And one of the specialists he sent me to was a psychologist. Now, the psychologist suggested I go to an HIV/AIDS awareness program. I went to this building, and there must have been about, maybe 75 to 100 people in this particular meeting.
Wow.
And some of the people in there, you know, some people were crying, you know, and I just happened to sit in front of a guy who was sitting there talking about, you know, he was going to die, and he was talking about death. And needless to say, I didn't last long at this meeting. I think I left after about 15 minutes. I wasn't about to listen to that crap.
Right.
Because I was going to live. There was no doubt about it. So I went to, I continued going back to the doctor. They sent me to more specialists. But then I had read this article, this news magazine, that talked about this place in Atlanta, Georgia, called the Grady Medical Center or Institute, there in Atlanta, Georgia. I would get out. Had gotten off from work one night, and I read this article over and over. Every time I would put it down, I would pick it back up again. And so the next morning, I got up. I threw some things into a bag, into a travel bag, and I went to the bus station, and I got a ticket to Atlanta, Georgia. I left behind my job. I left behind my home, everything in my home. I left behind my friends, because I was in a fight.
Right.
I was in a fight, and I had every intention of winning. And so I went down to Atlanta, Georgia, and I talked to one of the representatives there. She set me up and everything, and they started working on me. I got talked to my job. I called my job, and I told them that what had happened. I told my boss exactly what happened. I still remember his name, Mr. Kojima. Was the greatest man in the world. I love that guy. And I told him what was going on. He made sure that everything was transferred, you know, to a different hotel there in Atlanta. And he offered me a letter of recommendation and everything to help make sure I had a job there in Atlanta. I found a place to live right across the street from the Grady Medical Center.
Wow.
I took an apartment. I wanted to be right there. I had every intention of winning. And so, after about 3 months at the Grady Medical Center, I was non-detectable. that means that the virus is there. It'll always be there. But they couldn't find the virus in my body anymore. It's hiding. So it's theirs. Which means that of course I can function. And I've been positive now. I've been non-detectable now for 20 years. After about 3 months, I went non-detectable, and I've been non-detectable ever since. I truly feel that aggression that I took, those steps that I took, saved my life.
Right.
And what a life it's been. It's been a truly magnificent gift, and I am grateful every single day.
That's awesome. I know I had about 20 years ago, I had cancer, and I had the same thing. I'm like, well, I'm going to get through it, and you saw these other people all around you that were like, hey, they're just like so mopey and everything. And I'm like, y'all need to be more positive. This is going to be a good outcome, not a bad outcome, so I get it. So tell us, do you have a really awesome tip, a fabulous tip that you can share with us today?
Well, the thing, for example, that I learned that particular day, we walk around every day, we do our jobs, we have our activities, we deal with family issues, we deal with bills, we deal with everything else. Every once in a while, and I know it sounds like an awful cliche, but take a little breath, look around, enjoy the sunlight, enjoy the blue skies, enjoy the smiles. Every now and then make some human contact, really. Talk to somebody that you've never spoken to before. Show some kindness, all that good stuff. It really does help. You just can't close yourself off, and from the world. You can't do it and then live.
Nice. Love that. So have you ever had like a fabulously embarrassing moment that you want to share with us, or just something crazy that happened that you're like, I learned something from that?
The only thing I could think of right off the bat was I was going to work one day, and I looked down at my feet on the subway, and I had 2 different pairs of socks on. And it wasn't, it should have been something I could have easily seen, and I guess I just got distracted and put on 2 different pairs of socks, and so I had to sit all day, with my feet crossed, and hopefully that nobody would notice that I had on like a blue sock and a red sock. But that's about the only thing that I can think of. There have been plenty, don't get me wrong, but I try to put those out of my mind.
And probably nobody cared that you had 2 different socks on,
Probably, but I did.
I know everything that revolves usually is like, oh, nobody really cares. I'm the only one that really cares. So do you have something fabulous that you would like to give our listeners today?
Yes, I would. One of the things I did in celebrating, as I am celebrating this year, my 20 years being non-detectable, HIV positive, and one of the things that I did was write a book. I wrote a book titled Pieces of Life, a memoir and selected works. I put a lot of my writings in there, and then I also put in some of the life stories, just a few life stories in there, and because I wanted to leave something behind. God forbid, I don't have kids or anything like that, but I wanted to leave something behind. I wanted to leave behind something that was positive. And to me, this is my dream. It's my dream. I've always wanted to do this. I had said I was going to do it for years and years and years. I'm going to write a book. I have so many pieces that I just never did anything with. I kept them in a notebook, and so finally I decided, well, I asked myself, how did I want to celebrate coming up on that 20 years? And I put my stuff into a book.
Nice. So how did they get a hold of it?
Well, you can go to the website. I have a website now. I wrote this under a pen name at the time. I wrote it under pen name, for whatever reason, but it's under Cola. It's spelled Kola, Anthony, Anthony, Scott, Scott. That's COLAAnthonyScott.com. You can go there and you can purchase the book there, but you can also go to Amazon. You can go to Lulu, either one of those places, and also pick up the book. The book is called Pieces of Life, Memoir and Selected Works.
Awesome. All righty, everybody. So go to colaanthonyscott.com right away. Grab a hold of that book. Get connected with, this incredible gentleman, obviously, is someone that you want to be around. So follow him on social media. You obviously want to book him for your next upcoming event. Remember to go to Public Speakers with an S, Association, all spelled out. Under the speaker search, just put in Pressley or Giles or whatever, and little info will come up, and you can follow him on social media. It's an easy way to get a hold of him. So thank you, Pressley, for being on today.
Thank you. I hope to be as fabulous as you are one day.
Oh, you're so cute. All righty, everybody. We will see you next time on the World's Most Fabulous People series. Thanks, Pressley. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.